Welcome to the Spark by Hollywood podcast. I am your host, Devora Goldberg. This podcast is all about shining the unique spark beyond the typical and traditional Hollywood love. We're all familiar with Hollywood. We watch the movies, the shows. We become pretty much obsessed with the daily lives of the celebrities, how they're doing outside hours of their shows and the movies. And not only that, but the media does a really good job of giving us a paparazzi lens into their lives and letting us know their day-to-day details. Not only the Kardashians, there are others as well. Now, because these celebrities are in the limelight, we tend to follow them, we tend to emulate them, and we tend to think that their model of love, relationships, marriage, perhaps divorce, will actually translate into our own lives, how we live our lives. And we tend to mirror what we see, what we see from paparazzi, what we see in the movies and what we see in the shows. The question is, are these relationships that they're showing us, that paradigm to the world, are those relationships in general everlasting? Is this something that we should be looking up to? Now, one of the things that is typical in the Hollywood paradigm is the casual sex culture and the freedom for anyone to have sex at any time, with whomever they want, at any age. Basically, no boundaries at all. And yet, the repercussions of this seemingly harmless act many times last years and years later, sometimes even for generations. On today's Spark by Hollywood stage, we are spotlighting the show that Meghan Kelly had on many years ago. She had a show where she had different guests on who had taken DNA testing and had discovered a long-lost parent, a parent or relative they didn't even know existed. And she had them on her show, and it made for a great show because of the high-strung emotions that were felt throughout. So on one particular show, she had a woman on. And without going into too much of the details of the story, this woman was probably in her mid-40s. She had a husband, children of her own. I believe it was 2 sons. And she said that she had never met her dad. She had never known her dad. She had known that her parents had a one-time summer fling, and she was born out of that, but she never actually met her dad. And she always wondered, the sense of identity. Who do I belong to? Who is this kind of pillar that I come from? We have 2 pillars we come from, mom and dad. Well, who is my dad? What's his personality like? Do I look like him? Will I like him if I meet him? Will he be nice to my family? And those years of missing, of that gaping hole, of not having the identity that you really should have, that we should all have. It should be a right, a basic right. So they continue the show and they talk about how she took the DNA test and she discovered that she had a dad, and they reached out to each other, they contacted each other. And towards the end of the show, Kelly said, I have a surprise for you. And the woman was all surprised. She said, what? She said, your dad is here in studio. Your dad is going to come out and you can meet him in person. So of course, climaxing a TV show like that, where you have 2 people who never knew each other before, but are very closely related, daughter and dad, they come together, emotions are high, the tears are streaming. Lucky for them, they embraced, and you can feel the love between them. But you also feel at the same time the fact that there's sadness of all these years that were missed. This woman grew up. Maybe she had a stepdad, maybe she had other male figures in her life, but she didn't know this dad. She couldn't reach out to him for love, couldn't reach out to him for support. He didn't walk her down the aisle at her wedding. He didn't welcome her 2 sons into the world. But now they had a chance to reunite or unite in the beginning. And it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. Again, emotions were high. Everyone was clapping, wiping away their tears. And it brings those people back to hear more of these shows. But at the same time, when the last guest has left the studio, left the stage, left the building, we are left with a generation of people who are born out of either, unfortunately, a rape, an attack, a pregnancy which is not wanted, a one-time summer fling, or one-time hookup. And the parents are not ready to sustain this pregnancy. They're not ready to sustain and bring this child into the world. And then they enter the conversation of either abortion or adoption. Either way, the child is not wanted. And if we peel back the layers, and instead of attacking the fact that we have a rape culture or we have an issue with abortion, and let the women speak up for themselves, it's their bodies, it's their right. Let's take the right over our bodies all the way back to the beginning of the day. Back to the beginning of the day where the woman has a choice when she looks inside the mirror, when she sees her reflection, and she says, who am I? Who am I at my core? Am I here in this world just to have quick sexual pleasure? Or do I have more to myself and more to give in a conversation, within culture? Do I have more within me? And yes, the answer is yes. We have more to give to the world. We have the human spark connected to godliness. And that's where our value comes in. And that's the message that we should be giving to the world. And when a woman looks at her body and says, it's not just a body and I'm going out for some quick pleasure, that quick pleasure can happen and will happen at the right time, but I'm not available for everyone. In Judaism, we say and we learn that the sexual intimacy is reserved for the structure of marriage, nowhere else. And the buck stops there. There are some people who have issue with it, and there is a whole culture out there that says that's ridiculous. We're doing just fine. But then let's flip the coin to the other side. We have children who are born who are not wanted. We have children who are growing up hurt. And these children grow up into adults and they are hurt. And those adults may have children of their own. And the children say, where's grandma? Where's grandpa? Why aren't they in our lives? And we have to try to explain something which should be a normal family capsule into what society has created into their norm. So let's take back what really belongs to us. Let's look at ourselves in the morning with true empowerment. What message are we giving off to the world? What message do we give ourselves? How do you see yourself as you go out to the world? And what message do you give society when they perhaps come to you with their messages and you say, no, now is not the time. I am not available. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you are loving the Spark by Hollywood podcast, I'd appreciate if you can leave me a 5-star review on any platform that you're listening on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Audible. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Spark by Hollywood, because that's where the conversation continues and where I give you extra content on all my episodes. Send me your feedback all the time. I want to hear from you. Give me your feedback, your comments, your questions, and your aha moments, even something that really rubbed you the wrong way. I love those. Send them all to info@sparkbyhollywood.com. And remember, in a world where we are all enamored by the spark of Hollywood and its celebrities, always remember your own spark that you carry within you, that makes you the gift that the world needs to shine that much brighter. I'll catch you in the next episode.